Cool.
You got it, bro.
Right on. Let's do this. So I'll just need one sec. All right, TCP listeners, I have an absolutely amazing, thrilling guest today, and that is Garrett J. White. Garrett, how are you doing today?
Oh, brother, I'm on fire. I'm excited to bring a little heat with you here. We're going to bring some holistic fire to an industry of chiropractors who are trying to make a difference and stay out of pain clinics and start actually being clinics of prevention. So I'm excited. Hopefully some of the stuff we talk about today allows you to take one step further to why you actually got into the business in the first place and not following subset to just dealing with pain-based clients constantly every single day.
Garrett, I love it. I mean, I'm already stumbling in the introduction, but I got to tell you, I mean, I love the word you just used, which is business. Because, you know, as chiropreneurs, I like to say that we are, is that we need to start looking at, we have a product, we have a service that we provide. We need to treat it as a service or a product. And I love where our conversation, I think will go today. And that's talking about, you know, I'll use that term that you have of the modern man or just the even modern person and how that is also related to being successful in business today, because I think there's some unique value there. But, you know, in the introduction, I shared just a little bit about you. Could you share more with our listeners? Tell us more about you, the person, but also, you know, you as the master coach as well.
You got it, man. So I'm going to start it off with this. Like 2007, New Year's Eve, the world itself celebrating the dawn of a new year. Right? This is what we do on New Year's. New Year's Eve is like a time to get all pumped up. And if you weren't doing shit the year before, you're all pumped up about doing shit that you're probably not going to do in the next year. But nonetheless, it's a very exciting night. Half the world is intoxicated, and many people are having sex, trying to have more babies. And it's like it's a celebratory night, right? Well, I was not drinking. I was not celebrating. I was not having sex. I was lying in my bed. And the moon was shining through the big windshield, or the big windows inside of our multiple $1 million home. And my wife was sitting up with tears pouring down her cheeks. And she looks over at me and says, I did not sign up for this. And I remember laying back with my hands behind my head and laying down on the pillow and looking up at the ceiling as the ceiling fan was turning. And I was bringing myself back to 7 months prior in the summer of 2007. So I'm sharing the stage with Tony Robbins in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mortgage Planners Summit. And for 8-9 years, I had been crushing it in banking as a real estate investor and insurance advisor. I'd done a lot of relationships with chiropractors, and I couldn't figure out how I'd lost everything. Like within the next 3 months, I would lose everything. All 6 of my businesses, we were bleeding $500,000 a week in cash. Our entire payroll was, I had to fire every single person in my business, including my mother and my sisters and my brothers, blood brothers who worked for me. For 10 straight days, I sat in interviews just letting go of employees as my entire world shredded to the ground. And what I didn't know that was happening at the time, that actually was the greatest gift that had ever been given to me. And it exposed me, kind of like a tide coming in and then going out. When the tide goes out, you see shit that you didn't see when the tide was in. And when money was really good for me as a businessman, and when banking was rolling and life itself was on fire, I didn't ask a lot of questions. I'd look at going to chiropractors and working with chiropractors because my back hurt. I was like, oh, my back hurt, my neck hurts. But you know what? If it doesn't hurt today, then what the hell is the point? Why the fuck would I go to a chiropractor if my back doesn't hurt? This idea of prevention, this idea of actually living in a life where I could be at cause for my life, that I could prevent the pain and actually experience the pleasure, it was a new thing for me.
Wow.
So that was kind of the onset of this whole journey that became the Wake Up Warrior movement, which is now here we are in 2015. Almost 7-8 years from that time, reestablishing and building a whole new conversation around how do you rebuild your life, regardless if your life hasn't been burned to the ground.
And you know, I love what you're saying here. Like, I want to come back to that term of the modern man. Like, how do you define that? I mean, is there a unique challenge for the modern man compared to, say, 10, 20 years ago?
For sure. And it's like scientific too, in the way that things have like evolved in our culture. So like when I was as a banker, I had one story in my mind, right? So I was raised a Christian man. I was married, I had kids, I was divorced and married again. And I had one story, which was I need to hunt. I got to get paid, right? If I get paid, everything else takes care of itself. And so every single morning I woke up with this focus to hunt, to hunt, to hunt. And that's been the case for generations of men here in this country. 100+ years, men have been trained and been taught by the society that we've been raised in that your job is to go get paid. Go get paid. Now, along with getting paid comes this desire to get laid, which is a natural deal. And the crazy thing is, the more you get paid, the more you want to get laid. And sometimes when you're not getting paid, you still want to get laid. sure that's true. You kind of want to get laid all the time. But my point being is that the modern man itself in the past, man was okay to just be a one-dimensional dude. Go make some money. And as long as you do, guess what? Mom's going to take care of everything at home, take care of the babies. Everything's going to be great. We're going to have plenty of sex. The kids are going to be raised. There's going to be food on the table. The kitchen's going to be clean. Shit's going to be handled. Bills going to be paid. All you got to do, bro, is go make some money and golf with your friends on the weekend, have a few cigars and call it good. And that was the game I played as a banker. Didn't know my kids, disconnected from my wife, thought a black Amex card would take care of my marital relationship, had no idea. And so a modern man's been forced into a new game, though, because, see, with the implosion, in my experience of what happened in 2006, 7, 8, and 9, there was a whole rising up that's been building for decades now of women. Women who, because their men have become so sedated and disillusioned and disenfranchised with how life works today. Because, see, I'm expected to be a caregiver. My wife's in New York City right now, banging her business, crushing with Heidi Klum. And I'm sitting here in Laguna Beach, California, trying to get my kids off to school this morning, knowing I got an interview with you. I got a client who's right here sitting on my couch. Say, what's up, AZ?
What's up?
I told my guy that flew in here from Phoenix for one day with me in our offices. We did a 4-hour streaming hour last night. I'm coordinating the nanny. My daughter's sick, and I'm handling all this shit this morning. And I'm waking up, and I'm thinking, dude, sometimes I'd like to go back to not the modern man, where I could just wake up every morning, I had to worry about one thing, go and make the money. Now I got to get up in the morning, coordinate with my kids, coordinate with the nanny, take care of the emotional needs of my wife and my children, actually know how to do this, how to not be triggered and just want to throw my kids into a room and lock the door, and how do I actually live in that space, at the same time stay fit so I don't fall apart physically, have spiritual purpose, and at the same time still be a hunter. So whereas my dad was just required to go make the money, I'm required to make the money. And my wife expects me to be a caregiver, to deal with the kids, to be her friend, be emotionally connected with her. At the same time, be like the man who seduces and takes her. And all of these different roles for guys have become so convoluted, we don't even know how to play much anymore. And so what becomes the easy game is we go back to what the game was before, which is like, well, we'll go make money. And if I'm a chiropractor, typically not all the time, typically I'm also fit. Because you kind of have to be fit. Because you're a hypocrite if you're fat as a chiropractor. Like you're a hypocrite as like fuck as a chiropractor. Because you're like, listen, holistic living, but I'm a fat ass. You're like the PE teacher who's like, hey, we're going to jump rope. We're like, listen, can you even jump rope? We're like, well, no, listen, I want you to do what I say, not what I do. Now, if you're overweight and you're a chiropractor and you're listening to this, listen, I'm calling your ass out. You're supposed to be teaching holistic living, which means your body is your temple. Your nervous system is the connection to source. And when it is aligned and on fire, you have access to perspective. But when you don't have perspective, when you're misaligned, when your nervous system is not connecting correctly, when energy is not flowing through your body horizontally and vertically correctly, then what you see is fucked up. And you know as well as I do, that's why so many chiropractic clinics run weight loss programs, because why? Part of the biggest problems with your spine is the fact that you're overweight. Why? You're one-dimensional. I'm going to go work real hard, but I'm going to be overweight. Now, there was my little rant, and if you're fat and you're a chiropractor, I still love you, but come on now. Come on now. Don't be a hypocrite in your own clinic. And that's probably a sure sign that your clinic's become a pain clinic too, which is not why you started in the industry in the first place. And you know what? If I was a chiropractor and I came into the industry to make a difference and help people see holistic practitioners and see how you could actually prevent most of the shit that you're going to popping pills for, and guess what? If I didn't have a clinic like that and my shit had become a pain clinic, I'd probably go get fat too, just because I wouldn't have any purpose anymore. Now I'm like, God, I hate my job. Now I'm a chiropractor doing a pain clinic. I hate dealing with people in pain all day long. I actually want to help people get out of pain and maintain being in pleasure. But see, I don't know how to market that way. And I don't know how to build a business that way. And that's why listening to this show is so important for you. Because every week you can get people coming up on here, crazy people like me, who might say, hey, you're fat, you need to knock that shit off. Getting alignment and maybe getting fit would give you the inspiration to see the world differently. So that you could what? So that you could actually go get the clients that you want. I don't even know if that answered the modern man question, but there you go, bro.
I think it does. You know, I mean, I've become a huge fan of your podcast and, you know, Warrior on Fire. And I clearly remember too, I'm just pulling a couple things from what you're saying, is like one of those things, those terms you used was called weaponizing the body, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Is this what we're kind of going back to, is, you know, but I mean, and then there was also the other end of the spectrum too, where you could go a bit too far on focusing on your physical self. I mean, I guess there's that balance, right? Between, yeah, like you're saying, like being a dad, being an entrepreneur, making payroll, and then making sure you take care of your health.
Doing all these things at the same time is a nightmare. Like it's a nightmare. Like it's a goddamn nightmare. Like I ain't gonna lie to you. It's a nightmare, right? But see, men are being required to play into it. And the men who aren't are just sedating themselves. This is why we have the highest divorce rate ever. Highest divorce rate ever in this country right now. And guess what? The highest filing divorcing is happening in mid-30s and early 50s. And it's being filed by women who are linked up to men who have not got a clue. And most of these dudes are entrepreneurs who have said, dude, I can't handle this holistic game. I'm just going to work harder. Thinking that somehow if I can bring home the bacon, that'll be enough, but it's not. Right? So when I started to get this, you asked me before the show, you're like, what are some of your values? My values are very simple. I live by a code, I stand for a core, and I create with the keys. This is a warrior's way to having it all. I live in this core. This core is my foundation. What is the core? It's really simple. Number one, be real. Be real. What does this mean? Tell the logical truth. Can you intellectually even tell the truth? Can you even see the truth in your life? Can your clients even acknowledge reality? When they come in and you do one adjustment, the pain goes away, and then they're like, I'm good. You're like, listen, I really need to see you 2 to 3 times a week for the next 3 months. And they're like, oh, shit, it's too expensive. I don't want to come. See, the problem is they're not being real with themselves. They're not being real with themselves. And see, if you're not being real with yourself, you can't help them be real because liars can't help people tell the truth. Liars perpetuate lying. Obese people can't teach fitness. They can teach obesity. Fit people can teach fitness because they experience fitness. Rich people can teach wealth because why? Because they have money. It's not that we can't help, and that's all different levels of fitness and richness and wealth and all this, etc. But the first one is be real. I lied my whole damn life. I was probably one of the best fucking liars I ever knew. Like I lied about everything. I lied about it because I couldn't even tell the truth because I thought everything inside me was never good enough. So it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how much money I made, how much sex I had, how much success we had, how much I bench pressed, how successful I was in football or Ironman or anything. It didn't matter. I always had to tell a little bit lies. Because I was not cool with just reality and me, and hence I wasn't cool with reality and others. Second piece with this is to get raw. We become so sedated in the way that we talk about ourselves in our lives these days. We don't even let any emotion out. So we start telling the logical truth. We're like, oh, well, here's the truth. Dude. I really had a bad day. Wow. I can't tell. You sounded like a goddamn robot. I didn't even know what you just said right there. You're like, I had a bad day. And you're like, okay, now I'm getting you. I feel you a little bit. Or you're like, dude, you know what? I'm really excited. So people are neutering themselves at the top and the bottom of that scale. They're not being honest when they're angry, and they're definitely not being honest when they're excited. So we've been taught as a society just to tell the fucking lies and then sedate and neuter our emotional truth. Now, as a chiropractor, you're calling people in a situation. You're asking them to look at the world differently. You're saying, listen, you can prevent all of this stuff that's going down. You don't have to end up in a walker with the little fucking tennis balls on the end, pushing around because you can't even get off the damn couch because you're walking around with bad posture and you didn't know that your spine and your alignment affects your power and that your power and capacity affects everything. And that you could solve this and you could fix this and you could maintain this. Well, I go to chiropractor 1-2 times every single week. I'm addicted. All my children go to chiropractor. My nanny goes to the chiropractor. My wife does not go to the chiropractor. Don't know what to tell you. She will not go. She refuses. Thinks the chiropractor's going to twist her head right off her shoulders. So I'm like, listen, she can sit and watch my daughters go, me go, whole thing, do the traction thing. Wah, 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 wah. I love that because I got to compress this. I get it. But you can have all those conversations, but if you don't emotionally let yourself be available, you're done. Third piece, stay relevant. Most people are not clear about where they are because they're liars. And they're definitely not clear about where they're trying to go because they're liars. If you lie about where you are, then anything you say you want is also going to be bullshit. Because what you say you want is built on a foundation of lies. So in your marriage, I want this. Yeah, but you're a liar. Your wife only knows 70 or only knows 30% of the truth inside you. You keep holding all your shit back and not telling her how you're feeling. Well, I want this in my business. Yeah, but you won't look at your numbers. You won't look at your numbers and realize that going to a cash-only practice might make sense for you. You're paying so much in insurance fees and payroll and everybody else you're trying to manage to go collect on shit that you owe. You might make more sense to just say, bonk, and just go to cash. Oh, I'll lose like 70% of my clients. You're like, you know what? You probably will lose 70% of your clients. But you know what? Your profitability go up because you're looking at the wrong numbers. But see, we can't tell if we can't be honest. If you can't sit down and look at your numbers, you're done. All of the targets you set are bullshit. My fitness, same thing. If I can't look at where I am, the trainer brings you in, sits you down, measures your body fat, says how fit you are, how fat you are, and then says, what do you want from here? They don't come in and say, well, let me close my eyes here real quick. Well, I'm guessing that, back in high school, you used to be really fit and had a nice ass. Well, guess what? You're 52, you're not in high school, and your ass is really big and it's hairy and it's not so attractive. And you are not even close to pulling this shit up that you did in high school. We got to deal with reality where you are. Fourth piece of my code, my values I live from is results. The reason people can respect me or hate me, I don't care. It's because I live in a world of results. So you ask me what's my favorite quote. My favorite quote of all time was by Jesus. Jesus in the Bible. And Jesus said this, by their fruit ye shall know them. By their fruit you shall know them. It didn't say by their reasons you shall know them. By their stories you shall know them. By their intentions you shall know them. By their good meaning actions you shall know them. Or by what they do you shall know them. Nope, you shall know a person, not by what they say, not by how they feel, not by their stories, not by their drama, not by their reasons. You will know who they are based on their results. Period. My friend comes to me, he's broke. Can't get shit off the ground with his business. You're like, cool, what are you going to do about it? He starts to do some stuff. He comes back 6 months later and he's like, well, you know, it's going pretty good. And I'm like, are you making any more money? He's like, well, no. And I was like, cool, then it's not working. Well, no, dude, I'm getting a lot of this and this and this. And I'm like, bullshit. At the end of the day, it's results. My other friend, he's like, I'm gonna get me a new trainer. He works the trainer for 6 months, comes back, he's actually fatter than when he started. I'm like, what the hell, dude? He's like, well, I think it's working. I was like, it's not only not working, you're going the other direction. He's like, yeah, but I'm having a really good time. I was like, listen, are you after a really good time? Or are you after results? See, the world not only have been taught to lie, men have been taught to sedate their feelings, lie about their truth, sedate their feelings, be vague in their desires, and at the same time to focus on reasons. And we become men who show up with reasons instead of results. We're like, well, here's my reason, here's my story, here's my justification for why my life is one-dimensional. I don't have the body I want. I don't have the beingness and the spiritual connection I want. I don't have the balance, intimacy, sexuality, and connection with my wife and my connection with my children that I want. I don't have the marketing, the sales, the systems, the technology and automation and teams that I want in my business. I don't have the money I want. So we come up with reasons. And the problem is we surround ourselves with people who tell us that's okay. And then we drift to conversation with people who just tell us to go watch the DVD The Secret a few more times and say, well, you know, if you just hope for it, you build a big enough vision board, somehow your business is going to turn around. Or you could just get real and say, you know what, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know, I don't know how to fix the problems I'm in right now. I don't know where to go from here. I need help. And maybe that's some of you listening to this podcast right now, right? You come in your Dr. Ed's show because you're looking for answers. You're tired of being stuck and feeling like you're on an island all alone. And I can promise you the one thing I can tell you about humanity and entrepreneurism and being dudes, being men, is this. We all think we're alone and we all think we're different. And it's a lie. We're only alone and we think we're different because we tell that story. The truth is we're not alone. And the truth is we're not different. We're unique. We're all crazy in our own unique way. We all screw life up in our own unique way. As businessmen, we fuck stuff up differently. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. Same feelings, same fears, same worries, same concerns, same stress. Just looks a little bit different.
And Garrett, you know, in our pre-chat, I told you I would be asking for a quote, and I love the quote that you dropped on Docs today. But I'm going to ask you for that original quote, that original Garrett quote that you dropped on me, because I think it's really relevant as well. What was that? What were those words of wisdom?
4 words. Well, there's a 4-letter word. I like to put a little asterisks, and it just happens to be that the phrase is 4 words. So there's a phrase we use inside my Warrior Brotherhood, and that we talk about on our movie series at wakeupwarrior.com, which is this one phrase. This one phrase I say all the time, and it's my modern version of by their fruit you shall know them. Okay, so like Jesus had his quote on it, then there's Garrett 2015. I was like, that's cool, I like that, but I got a different way to say it in my world, which is do the fucking work! Exclamation point, hyphen, Garrett J. White, Master Coach Mentor. Yeah, I can put myself on that one.
So I mean, it's important. I think a couple things are so important in terms of success, whether it be in your personal life or whether it be in your business life or whatever endeavor you're looking for or goals you have. And that is to take massive action. I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? I mean, do the work.
for sure. Right? I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, you want to clean up your bookwork, clean up your bookkeeping and your numbers. Like, the entrepreneurs inherently are horrible at this. And, dentists might be good at it because they're like all like, but chiropractors, you guys like care about people. Dentists are like, rip the teeth out, charge you too much. Chiropractors, on the other hand, they're like, listen, I actually, at my heart level, like, really want to get into this industry because I love people. And so we tend to drift away from shit that, like, we don't want to look at, like the numbers sometimes. And as entrepreneurs, when we don't look at the numbers, when we don't get real about those numbers, and we don't do the work of organizing our metrics in our marketing and our sales and our systems and in our ultimate economics, who we're paying, how we're paying, margins, etc. When we don't do the fucking work there, it costs us over here. And the crazy piece is when you start to realize that your body is the way it is because you choose to not do the work. Your body is the way it is because you choose to do the work. Your money is what it is because you choose to not do the work, or you choose to do the work, or maybe you don't even know what fucking work to do. And that's why you come again to this podcast, or why you reach out to mentors or masterminds to try to figure out, well, how do I do this differently? How do I actually do the fucking work? People ask me all the time, well, Garrett, you say do the fucking work. What does this mean? Well, if we come back to the code, real, raw, relevant. Relevant means what? Where am I? Where do I want to go? Where am I? Where do I want to go? So when I do the fucking work, it's the work of getting clear first, and then it's the work of creating those results. It's the how-to process of going between these two places. And I get it. Sometimes it's really difficult to know what to do. When I was like four years behind on my taxes, back in 2010, I hadn't dealt with taxes from 2007, 8, 9, 10. 4 years of taxes. Why? Because my whole life went to shithole. Like financially, my life disappeared. Last thing I gave a shit about was my taxes. I was just trying to survive. Right? And maybe you've had that experience too, maybe you haven't, but that was my experience. And I was like, dude, I don't care. And so like I didn't want to do it. It got more and more difficult. And then I dove in and did the work with my accountants, and we cleaned it all up in a year. And by the end of 2011, everything was solid. The taxes were up and clear. But that was an example of the work that I didn't want to do.
You didn't want to face it.
Yeah, I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to look at it. Or my marriage. I didn't want to face it in my marriage either. It seemed really, really difficult. It seemed too painful. It seemed too hard.
Yeah, and I mean, what happens? Because, like, I mean, in your code, being raw is so important. But what happens to that modern man that is not raw? I mean, they bottle that stuff up. They have no outlet.
What happens is they go into like malls and they shoot people. What happens is they go into movie theaters and they shoot people. What happens is they start to drink just to sedate. Mm-hmm. They're the Christian dude who's like super solid guy, but they've suppressed so long because they can't be honest about their sexual desires for their wife. And so what they end up doing is first go to porn, then they're strip clubs, and they're getting escorts in Vegas, and now they're doing cocaine off the hooker's ass. And you're like, how'd this shit start? And everybody's like, I can't believe it. Or worse than that, you're one of the 3 preachers who run big churches who in the last 12 months have taken guns and shot themselves. See, we live in such a suppressed culture of political fucking correctness that we as human beings, particularly dudes, men who are facing all this pressure to be caregivers, to be emotional, to be available for our wives, to talk, yet at the same time, we're being told to go be men. At the same time, our women want to feel empowered and leveled up and given inspiration, and I agree with this. And at the same time, we don't know how to show up when our wife's in power. So we end up sedating and suppressing, and we don't talk about what we're feeling. And then it gets to a point where it just what? It unleashes. And it will always come out, particularly entrepreneur, married, with kids, get out of here. It's like the triple threat of insanity. I run a business with employees and clients. I am married, insane. I have children. Holy shit. Now, there's little guinea pigs, some puppies that shit everywhere in that mix. You're just asking for like explosion. Me, even with as crazy as I sound to most people, for most of my life, I was still super suppressed. I was raised in a very traditional Christian home. You said this, you did this, this is how it is, this is how you get to God. You don't fuck it up. Well, you wouldn't even say that. You would say, you don't screw it up. I mean, if somebody said fuck around our house, oh my goodness, you get slapped the shit out of you. It was like game over. Now, we'd say when we weren't around mom. And we would live this like dark life over here, but out in the public, we would paint this light. Oh, we're good, we're good, we're good. Me and my wife telling everybody we're good when truth is behind closed doors. We're like, I hate you. I don't even know if I want to be married to you anymore. On the business, we're like, yay, what's up? Everything's good, everything's good, everything's good. Yet the truth is we're like barely going to hit payroll this month, and we're stressed out about hitting payroll next month already. And next month ain't even happened yet. And why? Because we can't tell the truth. But like a person who's going into foreclosure in their home, they wait too long. Mm-hmm. They start to reach out with like 3 weeks before the auction. You're like, dude, where were you like when you started missing payments, like, or you knew you were going to miss payments 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago? Well, people are scared. They don't want to look stupid. Guys don't want to. We've not been told it's okay to be vulnerable, because most guys, because they're so scared of vulnerability, they use your vulnerability against you. Me, on the other hand, I just got to a point where I was like, you know what? It's either I let this out and live, or I continue to suppress it and I die. Or worse than that, I literally kill people. Like, I would walk around all day long so angry that anybody that looked at me, I was like, oh. Anything my wife said, she could be like, the sky's blue. And I was like, God damn it! God damn it, woman. She's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I just said the sky was blue. And I was like, don't! God! I'm under a lot of stress right now. My wife's like, you are an idiot. I don't even know why I'm married to you. I go to the office and people be like, be careful, lunatics here. What? Because I wasn't releasing. I wasn't working out as much. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't drinking green smoothies. I wasn't taking care of my body. I wasn't taking care of my marriage. I wasn't taking care of my kids. And so I had all this energy leak, stress and guilt and shame that was wrapped up into what we call in Warrior the core.
You know, Garrett, one thing I'm observing with interviewing all these amazing entrepreneurs that are hugely, wildly successful is they're very disciplined people, very disciplined, but also they're spiritual people. And I'm not being specific to Christianity, but I mean, you know, I'm a spiritual guy. So how important is your spirituality to your success in business as an entrepreneur?
Huge. Huge, right? But see, I look at spirituality from two levels, right? I look at it scientifically, and then I look at it as like ethereal. So the ethereal side of it is that it lets me feel a sense of purpose, right? So the spiritual conversation gives me context. It gives me spiritual frame through which when I look at it, my game changes. So when I look at my wife through a spiritual lens of her and I being companions in life through eternity, meaning that in this space and time and eternity, we are together to help each other grow. And I love to loathe that woman, and I loathe to love her. I hate her and I love her. And if you're fucking honest, you're gonna feel the same way about your wife. You're like, some days I'm like, oh, I just want to eat you up. And some days I'm like, damn it, God, 100 million other women to be married to except for you, you fucking crazy. I don't even know why I'm with you right now. Guess what? She's having the same feelings about you. So spiritual context gives me a why. It gives me a purpose around it. So instead of looking at my wife and saying, what a bitch, I'm like, look at my wife, and it's like, you know what? Her critical nature actually forces me to look at myself.
Wow.
And she's the one that knows me more than anybody else. Everybody else has their story about me, but my wife, she sees it all. She sees all my shit, the ups and downs, the uglies, the days I come out, I'm not shaving and my breath stinks and I just farted and whatever. And she's like, she sees it all. And so when she calls me out, it's tough. Business is the same thing. If you don't feel a sense of purpose, like you've been called to change things, it's really difficult sometimes, particularly like a chiropractic business, to continue to push. It's easy to default to a business that you didn't want to build. It's easy to all of a sudden become a pain clinic for overweight people. And you're like, dude, how the hell did I get here? And yet you go back to the purpose of what you even got into it. And 99% of all chiropractors I've ever met in my entire life felt called spiritually to do what they're doing. They they were called to make a difference. They may have even been going on the traditional medical path, and then they were interrupted with chiropractic because it affected their child or their family. So for me, it sets context. Scientifically, my spiritual frame really comes from meditation, right? And the ability for me to purge myself of stress. So as much as I yell, I meditate a ton too. So I meditate between 40 and 60 minutes every single day. I study from books that inspire me, from the Bible, from the Bhagavad Gita, the Dhammapada. I read all kinds of different spiritual books that inspire me to think. And I also do things like the Warrior on Fire podcast because it's a journal for me. You know, people are like, oh, you're doing this podcast to make money. And I'm like, we might, but the reality is I'm doing this podcast because like I like doing it. It makes me feel good. I like to share. I like to give back. And I have found that when you give back, that tends to come back and bless you pretty good too. So for me, spiritually, then I have this spiritual frame and then the scientific frame, which is I kind of step away from the big vision of eternal life and all this shit beyond death. And I take that frame away and I come back to reality here and I say, well, okay, the reason why purpose helps me now is because it helps me be more connected with my wife. The reason why meditating and studying scripture that inspires me is because it helps me be a better father. The reason why this makes sense now to do this is because it helps me see clear as a businessman and make better decisions.
I think this is a really good conversation too, because, we're just going to circle back to being raw. You know, a lot of chiropractors have that facade, that camouflage of success where they're really struggling inside, whether it be with their business as an entrepreneur or their passion, maybe struggles at home, whatever it is, they want to portray a certain, persona. So for that doc specifically, what would be the number one very first step that you would recommend that they look at if they go, you know what, I'm feeling pulled to take some action?
So the game is always, can you write it down or can you say it? Right? So you're already thinking it, right? Even when you're in the conversation, like my wife would be like, are you okay? And my mouth would say, yeah, I'm okay. But inside I was like so pissed. I'm like so angry. I'm like, babe, it has been like 4 weeks since we've had sex. Like, truth is, I feel completely disconnected from you. Like, I don't even like you right now. And you know what? I think I'd rather just go look at porn and masturbate than to have to actually deal with this conflicting conversation right now. And yet my answer that came out was, oh yeah, everything's good, babe. Everything's good. Business, I'm struggling in marketing or lead development, and I can't even say it. I can't even say it. I can't even say it because what happens? Because the story's around me saying it. If I told my wife how important it was for me to be connected conversationally and intimately with her, well, I had the story that somehow that she would reject me, that it wouldn't work. In business, same thing. If I tell other entrepreneurs that I'm not successful or that my shit's not working or I was doing well, but now it's not going so well, if I tell people, then it's going to mean this. And so I started to investigate the stories around it. And the fast way to do it is to actually give yourself a chance to see it. So my favorite approach is I take this phone, my iPhone, every single day, at least once a day, and I shoot videos into it. But I don't send these videos to the marketplace. I just talk to myself. And what it gives you is this outside perspective. So I set up my phone on my dash of my car, and if I'm super pissed or I'm super happy or I'm confused or I'm sad or whatever it is, I just talk to myself. And then I turn it around and I play the video and I watch the video back and I experience myself differently. It's almost like an out-of-body experience because you've just captured yourself in this video and then you get to watch yourself back and you experience yourself differently there. So when I'm really, really angry, I'll yell into my camera. When I'm really, really sad, I'll talk into my camera. When I'm really, really excited, I'll talk into my camera. And sometimes I share those publicly and sometimes they're just for me. But nonetheless, the first step, regardless whether it's a journal, a video, an audio, is for you to be able to start putting down what's really going on inside you. One of the greatest tools I found for doing this is a book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And this book in there, she has a process known as The Work. She changed my life. This woman changed my life back in 2009 when I first met her. And she begins to just have you question a lot of the theories in your life. We use The Work as one of the core principles inside of one of our programs and our experiences here in Laguna Beach, California, called Warrior Week. And we talk about it at the foundation of everything we do in our Wake Up Warrior movie series online at wakeupwarrior.com. I talk about it all the time in Warrior on Fire, the podcast. Like it's a constant conversation, but it's the simplest model because Byron Katie literally has you do that. You write shit down, you say it and write it down, and then you turn it around. Like you investigate your thoughts. She has a quote that she uses in her book that like really changed my world, which is the greatest suffering in life is from an unquestioned mind. We think our thoughts are true. And the minute I started questioning the validity of some of my thoughts, most of my thoughts, I realized that I wasn't nearly as crazy as I thought I was. That most of my thoughts were just triggers, like a dog being triggered by a shake in a bush and my pit bull's thinking it's a bunny or something. There's a lot of bunnies out by our house. I'm like, oh, it's a bunny. They get all fired up and pumped up. When I start to question the thought of maybe it's not a bunny in the bush, all of a sudden my life started to open up. Things started to change. So the first step is get it out. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to get it out on paper. Warrior Week, that's what most of our guys do. It's an opportunity for high-level producing entrepreneurs to come together, 8 guys into an experience, and we built a movie around it. That again, you can see at wakeupwarrior.com that talks about the power of being able to release in these environments. But if you don't release, what becomes the outcome? What becomes the outcome is sedation or death.
And Garrett, one of the things that we love to do too is basically get one more nugget of advice from you. And I'm going to phrase it in a different way. I'm going to actually put you in a time machine. I'm going to send you back to a younger version of yourself. And let's say that this is around that time that you're really struggling back in 2007. And You have all the current knowledge and life experience that you have today. What would you say to your younger self?
Do the fucking work. And then I would tell myself what the work was. And it's really simple. It's manage your core 4 areas of life. That your greatest breakthroughs in business almost never come through your focus on your business. And if you can deal with the hemorrhaging fire, so like my life back then, I was at war with my wife and I was at war in the world, which means there was no safe place for me to be. There was no coming home to a place to feel comfortable about my life. There was no place to come home to feel secure. And so doing the fucking work for me is handling 4 areas every day: body, workout, and green smoothies and good nutrition. Being, meditation, and scripture study and journal. Balance, I send 2 text messages every day. One to my wife, one to my children. Wow. Or I do Post-it notes every single day, and I create a short video and I send it out through a gamified system we call Core 4. I send these texts out every day. They saved my marriage. They saved my mom and I's relationship. It restored me with my 16-year-old son who lives with his mom up in Canada, who I didn't raise. All of this, so the emotionality of my body collapses and I reclaim my power. I reclaim my power in my spiritual purpose. And I reclaim my power in my relationships. And back in 07, when I was fucking crazy in 08, trying to figure stuff out, I let everything in my life burn. I stopped working out. I stopped meditating. I stopped studying. I didn't journal. I didn't start taking care of my wife. I didn't take care of my kids. And I became this victim to life. And I thought that I could just focus on my business and solve things, but I couldn't. And then the 4th piece in business is to study the most important topics in business you could ever study: marketing, sales, and systems. And so the 4th thing that I do, I would tell myself, which is what I do every day now in Core 4, is I spend 15 to 20 minutes and I study a new concept around marketing, sales, and systems. And then I teach it on a Facebook platform to one of my clients, to one of my friends, to my wife. I share it. I put it on a journal. I create a video. I post it to YouTube. I put it on Facebook. If I had the Core 4 and I had the code, if I had the code of real, raw, relevant results, and I had Core 4 as a game, body, being, balance, business, 1 point for each of the categories, and I raced to get a 4 every single day. If I had these 2 things, I would have collapsed 5 years of my learning curve. But I didn't. And so I was a scattered, crazy man. No idea where to go, had no idea where to turn. I thought that I needed the world to change because I wasn't in power. And most of the decisions that we make that completely screw us in business are decisions we make because we're so hemorrhaged in our bodies, or we're so hemorrhaging in our spiritual purpose, or we're so hemorrhaged in the way that we're experiencing our marriage and our kids. We don't want to go home, or we're feeling guilty about it. If you close those areas up, you have all this capacity to see to create some really cool stuff in your business. So that's what I would say to myself, which is do the fucking work. But when I define what the fucking work is, for me, it's the code and the core, and it's a 3rd piece of the keys, but that we won't have time, I'm sure, to talk about today.
And so if you had a magic wand and you could wave away those struggles that you had, would you do it?
Hell no. Hell no. It's my power play. It's my power play, right? Because right now I can stand toe-to-toe with people who are going through shit and entrepreneurs that are struggling. And like, I get it. I can see the fear in their eye. Like, I got bullshit machete. Like, I got like laser goggles, man. I can see right through it because I was there. So when they're trying to smoke screen shit and pretend like everything's good, I'm like, you are so full of shit. Right? Because so like your darkness becomes your gift. Your darkness becomes your path. Your Saul becomes Paul. Like, you cannot escape the darkness. And if I had understood this, I would have quit trying to run from my problems. And I would have learned from my problems. I would have stood into them faster instead of wasting weeks and months at a time avoiding and then being forced to turn and face my problems. I would have just took them head on. Nowadays, I have tons of shit happen that's even bigger than the shit that went sideways for me in the past. But my ability to course correct and like ninja, it's kind of like old Danielson and Karate Kid, sand the floor, wax the car, paint the fence. You don't realize that your darkness actually turns you into a ninja. So there you go.
And so Garrett, for those docs that are feeling the pull to want to connect with you, how do they find you?
2 places, man. We got a movie series, a documentary series that tells the stories of warrior men just like you at wakeupwarrior.com. We really enjoyed it. It's free. Again, from that, if it makes sense for you to look at Warrior Week, there'll be a path inside of those movies that will tell you what to do. And the other pieces that I think is really, really fun, and we've been getting huge, raving fans on right now, is our Warrior on Fire podcast. If you look that up in the iTunes market, Warrior on Fire, I think you might really enjoy that. If you have a Christian background or not, it will still bless. But I was raised Christian, so for me, there's a lot of conversation. That's why we have it in the religious section, but we are teaching the Warrior's Way to having it all on that podcast also. So those would be the two places I'd check it out.
Yeah, thank you for that, Garrett. And I'm like I said, I'm not Christian, but I have probably listened to at least a couple of your your episodes. I had to listen back to them maybe 2 or 3 times because there's so many gems in there. I don't know how you do it, man. I interview people. You do all the work, but those are really there's some really valuable information, some knowledge bombs we'll say in there. Awesome stuff. And I want to thank you so much for giving back today and coming on the Chiropractic Philanthropist. Amazing, unique value. There's no one like you, Garrett.
That's good too. That's good because there was a second when we'd probably fight. We'd probably battle each other. We'd probably be best friends. We'd go back to back and be like my evil twin.
Right on. Well, again, thank you again. And again, for giving back. I appreciate it.
You got it, brother. Thanks so much for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it a ton. For all the chiropractors out there, do the fucking work.
That's perfect parting words.